you didn't think Jericho would really go through legit metal flooring and grating, you could go on Amazon right now and look up Contact Metal Vinyl Floor Tiles, self-adhesive, 4 for about $10. Look great. How'd you like tonight's AEW Blood and Guts? We will talk about that. We will talk about NXT last night, which I thought was a vast improvement for the last 3 weeks. And a couple other things going on. Oh, and by the way, isn't this going to be nice? May 30th, back 100% capacity. 100% fans coming back. AEW, which most of you thought was going to be the first one to bring back a show with complete fans. No empty seats. And that's only 3 weeks from now. So let's kick off the show. Have a little fun.
Sit back, relax, and enjoy as Don Tony gives you news and reviews from AEW.
Welcome to the party! Oh my God! Thanks for coming, Sammy!
NXT.
And it's over! KROSS is here to ransack NXT souls!
And Indi Wrestling. It's Wednesday night, Don O'Might.
Know what's happening in the world of wrestling without the hate and clickbait. And now, your host, Don Tony.
Much love, everyone. Much love. And yes. You like the shirt? Cubs win! Cubs win! I haven't done impersonations of Harry Carey in a long time, but I know some of my Chicagoans out there, and this is actually a little tribute to Mish. Mish is okay. I know we were all worried Monday. A combination of computer issues, but some health problems for Mish. Yesterday on Patreon, Mish and I did a almost 3-hour episode of Breakfast Soup. But he's doing well, and I hope you're all doing well. What's up, everyone? It is Wednesday night, May 5th, Cinco de Mayo. This is Wednesday Night Dynamite. I am Don Tony, as always. I want to thank you all for tuning in. And one fall, no need to be cursing out your fellow friends here in the chat. So we don't do that here. Tell you, not a bad 24 hours to be a wrestling fan. Yes, we could also include NWA if you want. But NXT last night I thought had an excellent show, starting to incorporate some of the bigger names. I have a few things to talk about last night, which we'll get into later. But obviously, the conversation at this point is this. AEW, Blood and Guts, excellent show. Would not be surprised they do 1.2 million after tonight. I'll tell you what was great about the show. They kept my interest throughout the night. Of course, we knew the second hour was going to be mostly Blood and Guts. If you just figure out, I mean, let's for those that didn't know the rules, well, yeah, there you go, bigger version. Once all 10 men have entered the cage, the Blood and Guts match, War Games, will officially begin. And the only way to win is to make your opponent submit or surrender, and referees will be stationed around the cage, just in case someone submits. Obviously, they started with 2 men. Every couple of minutes, another person is in. So when you just do the math, by the time all 10 men are in, you're past pretty close to, you're pretty close to about 30 minutes. So now, look, I want to just give a couple of shout-outs. Yes, I was a little nervous that the Super Chats were not going to work tonight. A little kink in the armor Monday. But Big Armada, he doesn't know if he was just disappointed by the main event or if he's been spoiled by NXT War Games matches. Well, look, I'm much older than you, so I go back to the first ever War Games. For AEW Dynamite, free TV, and AEW standards, this was phenomenal. It had a different feel to NXT just because it's in two cages, just because, they both, NXT and AEW, simulate War Games. I look at it like this. Growing up, we had cage matches in NWA and WWE. We had gimmick matches that were the same. This is obviously to another level because you're talking two cages here. So I don't look at it as this being a ripoff of this reminding you of this. The match I thought was excellent today. And the finish, look, I know some people are complaining already that Jericho fell through pillows. And as I showed you at the beginning of this show, these vinyl tiles that you can find on Amazon, you put them on the floor, they actually look pretty damn realistic. But I think back to Rikishi. Remember Rikishi when he fell off the cage? And he fell in like what was it, hay? I mean, he just fell backwards. Catch me, I'm falling. What do you expect? Come on. What do you want him to do? Really fall through? But, oh, yeah, if you're going to do a dive like that, you got to go the full blown. No, you got to literally cause yourself to be paralyzed. Come on. Yes, Gordon, a truck filled with hay. I don't remember anybody. I think at the time, people were kind of complaining more about Rikishi being in that, but it was so different at that time. I did it for the Rock. No complaints with tonight. Really had no complaints whatsoever. Now, obviously, at the beginning of the show, I showed you a picture of Daly's place with a full live crowd. The news that came out today, Tony Khan was on Busted Open Radio, and Tony Khan said that May 30th, they are pretty much, they're planning, but it's happening. They will have complete fan attendance. No 50% capacity, no 70%. If they get 100% fans, you're going to have 100% fans. For those that don't know, earlier this week, Ron DeSantis in Florida lifted all restrictions. All restrictions. Here in New York, they announced today, and look, it's a little goofy. I'm not a fan of Cuomo. I'm not a fan of de Blasio at all. But I told you a couple of months ago Cuomo was going to get through this. Unless they find in the investigation some crazy sexual harassment stuff, Cuomo is escaping this. He's getting through this. And they announced today, and this is important for wrestling. This is important for wrestling. They announced today that Yankee games and Met games, if you're fully vaccinated, they'll let you go 100% capacity. If you are not vaccinated, you could still go to the game, but you have to be socially distanced, which is going to be really interesting because once you seat people and you have people moving around, how are you going to tell who's vaccinated, who's not? You're not going to be able to tell. But the weird thing about it, and this is why I've been telling you, I told you, July or August, you're going to see things, the new norm for the next few years at least. But July, August, and I've been saying that since last year, is going to be the time where you're really going to see things full-blown into gear. It's going to happen with WWE. It's going to happen with indie wrestling. It's going to happen with other promotions. And now AEW's made the first step May 30th. And soon after, they will be touring to other states. But getting back to the New York thing, even though you can have technically 50,000 fans at a Met game or a Yankee game, if you're fully vaccinated, you still have to wear a mask. It's outdoors. It's outdoors. You could sit right next to someone, but you have to keep the mask on. Because you see the politics that are involved with this. You see how a lot of politicians tried to make the vaccine racist, that it wasn't available in less privileged neighborhoods, which here in New York, we prove that to be a lie. So what happens? They don't want vaccinated people who they feel majority are privileged to take the mask off, because if they could take the mask off, the people who are in less impoverished or more impoverished neighborhoods are going to say, wait a minute, I want to get the vaccine, but I'm having a hard time getting it. And all these other people can enjoy themselves without the mask. Fuck it, I'm taking my mask off too. So when you see Daly's place and people still having to wear the masks, even though Florida lifted the restrictions, AEW is still going to take precautions. NXT, WWE is still going to take precautions. I know some of it does not make sense of the science, but this is a big deal. This is a big deal. This is not, because DeSantis lifted the restrictions and AEW is deciding to be careless. That's not the case at all. This has been planned for a while, and now things are in full gear. And I feel bad for all of you out there that bought into that crap last year from all of those websites and podcasts that were telling you wrestling they'll never have house shows again. They're never going to do this again. All lies. Absolute lies. Couple of quick shout outs, if you don't mind, and then we'll get a little bit more specific into tonight's show and AEW's pay-per-view in 2 weeks. Alexis Rodriguez, he would have saved the match for pay-per-view. Alexis, by the way, your prize from last week, I mailed it out today. So you should have it. I know what state you're in. You're not too far from me. So by tomorrow or Friday, you'll have it. Look, I think everybody tuning in right now agrees with you. This match should have been for pay-per-view. But it's something we've talked about for a very long time. AEW is not following the path of WCW. It's too early. It's too early. They got an awesome TV deal, $155 million. It is a new company. As we recently talked about, AEW gives me a little bit of an ECW vibe. Something that we thought NXT was going to give us a while back, but that was not the case. Too organized. NXT, part of $1 billion company. Too professional, too organized. You can never have a hybrid of ECW with a $1 billion, publicly traded, very professional company. Even if you wanted to do it. That's why even Raw Underground, although a lot of us liked it, if you really started paying close attention to it, it was too organized. Just because you had people around that ring and they're not wearing masks and they're all kicking and chanting and making noise, that doesn't mean crap. So the point is, everything about AEW is TNT. And I'm not kidding. WCW was going to be sold to Fusion Media, Fusion, whatever it was. Fusion. Eric Bischoff led group in early 2001. And once AOL Time Warner had that merger, and they said, okay, we don't want wrestling on the network anymore. And I always remember to this day Diamond Dallas Page's infamous quote, but it's your number one show. Didn't matter. Once they lost TV, WCW was worth, I don't want to say next to nothing. We couldn't have bought it, but $4 million, whatever it is. AEW, if you want to compare AEW to WCW in any way, shape, or form, I'm not comparing, Khan to Bischoff, although I still believe, and I've been saying it for almost a year now, I know it's getting a little old, but it's going to happen. Khan will eventually be a character. I think he joins the Elite, and we kind of get like a little bit of an NWO storyline. I think it's happening. Even when that happens, I don't compare Khan to Bischoff from back in the day. I don't compare Jericho to Hogan or any others. I don't think the politics are as big, although AEW really does center a lot of time around their nucleus of management. But if AEW and WCW had one thing in common more than anything else, is the importance. Oh, this battery's dead? Oh, that sucks. I thought I put a fresh battery in here, so we don't have light over there. It's still bright in here. And I got my hair cut today. AEW and WCW heavily relied on their network TV deal. That is why when you heard the rumblings that TNT doesn't like surprises, and that's why they didn't really want this. And then Tony Khan went out of his way to clear up that rumor online. There's been 10,000 rumors about AEW that Tony Khan never made a remark about. But that one triggered him to try to clear that shit up ASAP. Why? Because you don't want to get on the wrong side of TNT. And the thing is, and I think this is the most important thing that they have in common with WCW, that they need to satisfy TNT more than anything else. That's why you see pay-per-view quality matches happen quite frequently on Dynamite instead of waiting for it undone. Now, look, I have nothing against Pac, and I have nothing against Orange Cassidy. But I'm going to prove a point right now. And by the way, shout out to everybody who told me earlier today, but wait a minute. Brian Cage and Adam Page, they just had a number one contenders match. Remember what I said last week? That the number one contenders aren't going to really be going for the titles, that the number one contendership is kind of like a title, that you're going to see people fight for a number one contendership that will lead to nowhere. How come Brian Cage is not facing Omega? They announce, because Orange Cassidy is, 8-0 this year? That's why Kenny Omega all of a sudden, records matter. Records matter. I'm trying not to curse tonight. If that's the case, Mr. Omega, then why was Hangman Page and Brian Cage having a match last week for the number one contendership? If records matter, why wasn't Orange Cassidy in these matches the last bunch of weeks? You see where I'm going with this? Orange Cassidy and Pac next week are going to wrestle on Dynamite with the winner taking on Kenny Omega at Double or Nothing for the AEW Heavyweight Championship. Now, getting back to what I said about the main events on Dynamite instead of pay-per-view. Pac versus Orange Cassidy. No matter who wins, and you know it could be Orange Cassidy more than anyone, because and I can't take all the credit for this. A lot of you have been saying this too. For over a year, what did we say about Orange Cassidy? All of us in having conversations. Orange Cassidy is critically important for AEW for fans. And as soon as the fans can go back in significant others, as will Orange Cassidy's push. When the fans return, Orange Cassidy's push returns. Along the way, Jericho gives him a little bit of rub, falling in the orange pool, the mimosa pool. That's what's going on. But the thing is, if you have Orange Cassidy versus Kenny Omega, why does that feel even more weak for a pay-per-view where you have bigger matches on Dynamite? So that's what happens when you have pay-per-view quality matches happening. Kenny Omega teams up with the Good Brothers against Moxley and the Young Bucks. That should headline any pay-per-view. But no, we do it on Dynamite. So AEW Dynamite, by appeasing TNT, appeasing. And look, for us fans, we benefit because we're getting great pay-per-view quality matches on TV for free. So we benefit from it. But when you look at it on an AEW side, you're doing that. And then Pac versus Orange Cassidy at Double or Nothing. I like Orange Cassidy. Orange Cassidy is a star and one of the most over wrestlers in AEW. His fandomhood by the fans is not left at all. But when you give us what you give on TV, that match on Double or Nothing feels like a step down. Because Orange Cassidy, as far as us fans for the last year, AEW hasn't done anything fabulous. Am I wrong? So, Orange Cassidy is tremendously popular. And again, when the fans returned, Orange Cassidy's push returned. But you've been pushing this number one contender shit over and over and over again. And you literally just had Page versus Cage last week for the number one contendership. And then today, Kenny Omega trying to twist it around. No, records matter. Records matter. So Pac versus Orange Cassidy, whoever wins takes on Omega at the pay-per-view. Inconsistency. Again, you could give us pay-per-view quality matches on TV, But sooner or later, it's going to catch up. Sooner or later, there's going to be burnout. And hopefully we don't have what WCW started doing, 35 title changes in 2 weeks. I know I'm exaggerating. But what's the next thing? Unpredictable title changes. So this person loses. He gets it back the next week. He loses it a month from now. He gets it back the week after. And next week we have Miro taking on Darby Allin. Oh, I got to throw this out there so people understand, because I got a few emails tonight asking questions about this. Let's talk quickly about the setup tonight for Blood and Guts. All right, this is a picture of them setting up the cage earlier in the day for Blood and Guts. Really, really cool. I mean, it was awesome. Very well done for a rather new promotion. I mean, still, the logistics, everything top notch. Now, let's think about the matches tonight. Hold on a second. Look at the stage entrance. See on the left, the stage entrance? Wait. So where was the other cage when all these wrestlers were wrestling tonight? Where's the other cage? Anybody stop to think about that? Well, I don't know who took this picture, but I thank 5 of you who sent me the same picture. But for the fans that tuned in live to AEW tonight, this is what they got. No, they're not brawling on the top of the cage. That was just for Jericho and MJF. But the fans that were live in attendance up until the Blood and Guts match, they were watching a screen. What AEW did tonight was everything that you saw in the previous matches were pre-recorded. They streamed it on the AEW Titantron for everybody live, and the fans live today, their reactions was caught on the show. So basically what AEW did tonight was all the audio reaction from the fans was tonight, was live. But they weren't watching those matches live and in person. They were watching a screen. But AEW used the audio from today. And when you go back and if you watch it again, Mystery Man, I don't care if it was pre-recorded. The matches are good. Who cares? I remember back in the day when SmackDown was always pre-recorded. And we would always give out SmackDown spoilers. And you would hear rumblings, oh, this was an amazing match. This was a great match. We would watch it anyway, So I don't think that's that big of a deal. It wasn't shenanigans. It really was not shenanigans, Ben. But, for people, you got to understand, when during the first hour, you're asking yourself, where's the other ring? And if you notice tonight, and AEW did this purposely, go back and watch the first 70 minutes of Dynamite tonight. Take note of them not panning the crowd at all, because the amount of fans there tonight was their largest gathering since January of last year. When they originally recorded these matches last week, the crowd was much smaller. So the last thing they wanted to do is say to us at home, oh, their biggest audience is January of last year. And then they pan like section 400 in the crowd and you only see maybe like 11 people there. And that's why even also when they showed the stuff, why was Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky all the way in the boondocks? You want to say, oh, because he was simulating Sting, who's always on the boondocks? No, they wanted to do the stair spot, obviously, but everything was being seen from the screens. So hopefully, Darby Allin is okay. Going down that flight of stairs, again, here comes the stunts. And if he's okay, he takes on Miro next week for the TNT title. I will tell you, Miro probably needs to win this belt. Not because of the way he's been used in AEW, but AEW's got to break this trend of big men that lead to nowhere. Because Miro, unless Kip Sabian shows up next week, and Kip Sabian causes him the match to set up a feud, which honestly I really don't want to see. I mean, I would understand why they would do that. But the thing is, I watched Miro last week beating up Kip Sabian and talking about all the champions are on notice. You know what that felt like to me? It felt like Lance Archer all over again. When Lance Archer was throwing jabronis through the roofs in the back, throwing people in garbage pails, beating everybody up because, it's time for him to get a belt, and that led to nowhere. So they have to break that trend. Brian Cage, FTW Championship. I like the title, and I like Brian Cage. If you tune in every week, you know that. But really, what's going on with him? Hangman Page, they have used him pathetically over the last year. Powerhouse Hobbs. Oh, by the way, the Acclaim's rap today, I actually wrote down the lyrics word for word. And I had this stupid idea that this chubby, maybe more than chubby, Italian middle-aged white guy, maybe does a little Acclaimed rap tonight to recite those lyrics. I thought they were worth taking them down, writing them down. So maybe if I'm in the mood, and for the right price. No, I'm only kidding. I don't whore myself out for the show, but I do appreciate all the support. If you're able to super chat, obviously that's awesome. It helps, with the expenses. And even if you just like, share, subscribe, it helps me tremendously as well. AS7607, I hope you're doing well. More ways than one, you know what I'm talking about. She enjoyed the main event. None of that Spot Fest bullshit. I agree. You didn't even need tremendous amounts of weapons. Although at the very end, the weapons were necessary. And I agree with you. MJF is, without question, one of the best wrestling heels in wrestling. And it's not just verbal. When you hear the fans chanting asshole, this is an example of not go-away heat, but heat. Remember when Baron Corbin did that stupid interview? And that guy said there's no such thing as go-away heat? What are you, stupid? When fans... fans are the ones that created the term go-away heat. And I know X-Pac is probably the most legendary one, even though I think that's unfair because I was always a fan of X-Pac. I love Six. I tell you, X-Pac is one of my favorites back in the day. 1, 2, 3 Kid was probably my least favorite of all the characters that he did. I did like the Lightning Kid before he became famous. But the thing is, go-away heat back then was when certain particular wrestlers kept showing up on TV and people over and over again, I'm going to go for a Kanish. I'm going to go for a smoke. I'm going to go take a leak. I'm going to go pick up some merchandise. I'm going to go outside and stretch. I'm going to go see what's going on in the other channels if we were home and not in the arena. And over and over and over and over again, when someone came on TV, that's when people decided to check out other things. How we find that out now as fans at home? By the drops in the viewership when we do quarter-hour ratings. But go-away heat was something that fans coined back in the day, that this person would get booed, not because you wanted to see them get their ass kicked, because you just didn't want to see them at all, period. That's what go-away heat is. MJF does not have go-away heat. He's got that heat where fans want to see him get his ass kicked. They wanted to see him bleed today. They wanted to see him get slapped around. They wanted to see him get tortured. And they did a tremendous job tonight. Tremendous job. Oh, yes, Ted Turner, without a doubt. Miz had that go-away heat his first year. A lot of people had go-away heat at some points in their career. Not to the extreme levels as some, but a lot of people did. Crazy Cruiserweight says, if Brian Cage was built up as a strong FTW champion and he beats Adam Page for the #1 spot, Kenny Omega's doing a belt collector gimmick, you're so right. You're absolutely right. Kenny Omega, I tell you, I could picture it in my head. All of you, close your eyes and picture this right now. Kenny Omega is confronted by Brian Cage. And how do you add heat to Brian Cage versus Kenny Omega? Kenny Omega only has to say one thing. I'm the belt collector. And I could take your belt and collect it. Add it to my collection. But the title's worth shit to me. And all he's got to do is demean the FTW title. Boom. And I got news for you. They did a storyline like that in ECW. Back then, if I remember this correctly, Shane Douglas had a feud with Too Cold Scorpio. Shane Douglas was always about the heavyweight championship. Too Cold Scorpio had the TV championship. And Scorpio was challenging Shane Douglas. And Shane Douglas is like, look, I don't care about that belt. I want the heavyweight title. I don't care about your belt. And sure enough, Shane Douglas, I believe, beat Too Cold Scorpio for that title. And he wanted Too Cold Scorpio to wrap the title, I think, around his waist, and then he cracked him in the head with it. I mean, part of that might be a little scrambled eggs of me over the years, but that's pretty much what it was. So Kenny Omega could have simply just demeaned Brian Cage with the FTW title, and that would have made the match mean more. The problem is, doesn't it seem like that storyline of Brian Cage leaving Team Taz, doesn't that seem to have been like put on ice right now? I mean, they did those vignettes week in and week after where Brian Cage didn't seem happy. Now all of it just feels like forgotten. And, when you give us some pay-per-view quality matches on TV, we kind of look away. I mean, Christian Cage, outwork everyone. Do you realize how many months he's been in AEW already? And what has he really done? I mean, obviously, he's got to take a step aside right now because there's other important matches and feuds that are going on. But don't bring it in the way you do, and then suddenly you got to back things off. They back off on a lot of things. And again, the number one contendership last week, you realize how ridiculous that looks? Hyping up the number one contender. They've been hyped up, a couple of weeks ago. Hangman Page is the new number one contender. And we all felt it, that I don't see them having a feud with Kenny Omega right now. And then all of a sudden, number one contender match with Brian Cage, and Page loses. His number one at the door. And we just had that conversation last week, like I said earlier, that the number one contendership doesn't feel like that whoever is right now goes for the championship. It felt like almost like a title itself. And what did they do today? Exactly what we talked about last week. Brian Cage wasn't even mentioned. No, instead, win-loss matters. Win-loss matters. So what does Brian Cage possess right now? So I guess he's not the number one contender, right? What's the storyline next week? Brian Cage comes out pissed off. How do these two guys get in the number one? I'm the number one contender. No, I'm the number one contender. No, I'm the number one contender. Are we going to possibly, I just had a brainstorm. Are we going to possibly have Orange Cassidy, Kenny Omega, Brian Cage for the AEW World Championship at Double or Nothing? Would not be surprised that they look back on this and say, uh-oh, we kind of forgot about Brian Cage. Don't be surprised if they bring him out next week. And no, I'm not going to tweet the one-line, two-line sentences to get 100 likes. I absolutely adore that. I adore it when we have some wonderful conversation and people listen to the show, and then 12 hours later, because they didn't think of it right on the spot, but after they hear the show, and then they go on Twitter and write word for word what we said the day before, even some of your comments out there, and then, oh, what an ingenious idea. Oh, the best last week. I had a feeling last week. Sometimes my hunches are good. Remember this last week? The Diamond Mine. Remember that? And you remember the fun that we had last week? All the goofs. No, welcome to NXT. Tessa, look, the diamond. The diamond. Everyone, look, the diamond. The diamond, it's Tessa. Look, the Diamond Mine. Oh, my God, it's Tessa. Now we're finding out that AEW is this close of signing Tessa Blanchard. We talked about it yesterday a little bit on Patreon. There's nothing wrong with being a fan. There's nothing wrong with fantasizing. Wow, how cool would that be if they bring in Tessa Blanchard? I know some of you don't like that idea, but maybe they have a whole faction with Tessa Blanchard, Parker Boudreaux, and a few others. So there's nothing wrong with fantasizing and coming up with ideas. But when people are like, yep, you heard it here first. You heard it here. Welcome to NXT. And this is it. And it mounts on the best today. WWE puts out all these photos of Eva Marie. The evolution is here. And while the goofs are still with their Eva lotion on their desks, their night tables, you have all these people online reposting all these pictures of Eva Marie. Oh my God, she looks amazing. She looks epic. She looks like she hasn't aged in 4 years. No fucking shit. Every photo that WWE posted today were the photos from 4 years ago. I mean, they're just wacky, man. Just completely wacky. And I noticed about 10 people disconnected because, we know who they are. They're a little shameful right now in the corner. But so that's what's going on with Tessa Blanchard. And unfortunately, everyone, what are we approaching, 6 weeks now? 6 weeks. Nothing. They vape. Whatever they vaped, they fell asleep. I like Sarray. That match that she had yesterday. I mean, I know a lot of fans never followed Yoshi wrestling. So the kick to the head in the corner, people are like, oh my God, I hope she didn't break her neck. That's careless. That's terrible. That's reckless. That's ignorance. Xylee does not have COVID. They just don't have anything right now as far as storyline goes. So anyway, so let me say that even though the fans tonight watched video screens for the first 70 minutes, and the audio we heard tonight were the live fans, but the matches were pre-recorded. Props to those fans tonight. Amazing energy, amazing reactions. Didn't feel forced. No disrespect to Ring of Honor fans, but anybody that goes back with me 15 plus years, remember those what do they call them? ROH bots. Remember that? ROH bots. They would have chance, just to have chance, and they would have chance to try to impress each other. Now, I'll never forget, I don't remember which Ring of Honor event it was, but I'll never forget it. We talked about this like 15 years ago. There was a fan sitting front row, and there was a couple of babes to his right. And you could see the camera on him, and he's like very low vocal, nothing derogatory, very vocal, very loud. And he started a chant. And every time he yelled out the chant, he looked to see if they caught on to it. And it was so pathetic to look at. Then about a half hour later, something happened in the match. I don't think it was Christopher Daniels. I got to look up the old episode. I know I have my old podcast episode. But about, Super Dragon, no, it was not Super Dragon. But about 30 minutes later, somebody did a spot, and this fan made some very creative chant. And then everybody started chanting it. And then he looked over it again at the babes, and the babes started chanting it, and it was just like, it looked so bad. And you know that the ROH bots at that time would chant stuff because they wanted to make it about them than anything else, The crowd tonight, not forced, organic, lively, energetic, being able to go. There a ton of people tonight that went. First time they're back at a wrestling event in over a year. And it's not just missing wrestling as a whole. It's going through COVID for 17 months. Not being able to hang out with your friends like you normally could. Not being able to, go socialize, go out to dinner, I know Florida, the rules were always laxed a little bit more. But just that cloud of COVID and the concern and losing money and friends and loved ones and others, so not being able to go to a wrestling event, it's much more than that. And, going tonight they probably had the same feeling as the fans did at WrestleMania. Maybe not to that magnitude, because Mania obviously is Mania. But I tell you, props to those fans tonight. Did a great job tonight. My only complaint tonight, only one thing. Only complaint. I wish the main event was commercial free. I mean, with the amount of money that the cons have, maybe TNT just said, no, we can't do that. I wish Blood and Guts' main event would have been commercial free. Even though you're watching it on the split screen. But even the part where Tully Blanchard hit Ref Bryce, stole the key, allowed MJF to escape the cage, only to climb it. But that was all during a commercial break. And yeah, you could watch it and kind of see what's going on. But me, when they're at commercial break, even though it's split screen, I run in here, I turn the lights on, I turn the computer on, I go take a quick leak, I grab something, I try to prepare. And I know that there's a lot of stuff going on during these commercial breaks. I wish, seriously, if they would have announced that main event was going to be commercial free, I truly think it would have taken the match on an even bigger level. It wasn't a tremendously big deal, but if there was anything that I could tweak tonight at all, was that. And maybe Anthony Ogogo's punch, because that's getting a little bit ridiculous. It's almost like the Vulcan death grip. Remember when we used to watch old school Star Trek with Mr. Spock? He would just go up to someone, hey, how you doing? It's so like, I know what you're going to say. Well, he's simulating and he's punching like the kidney area and this and that. Who the fuck punches like that? Seriously. Cubs win. But, it's getting a little bit too gimmicky. I mean, it doesn't look like he's putting a lot of force behind it. He's hitting the G-spot of men's abdomens. If anyone out there, male or female, that's hit someone's G-spot, you feel like, yes, wow. And speaking of yes, Friday on the Don Tony Show, maybe we'll talk about it tomorrow also, if you want to talk about it. Daniel Bryan's contract is officially done, but AEW and a lot of people think that Daniel Bryan will re-sign with WWE. We'll talk about that tomorrow and Friday. But, yeah, Benjamin, no doubt, getting punched in the gut is extremely painful. But, the way he sells it, it looks like a Mr. Spock Vulcan death grip, because it doesn't, you throw a punch. There's some people that throw a punch and it looks like it hurts. Him, it's just like, I got a flag in one hand. It's almost like a crotch shot, but instead of going under, you're hitting the abdomen instead. And the last two shots, the one he did, I think, to Lee Johnson last week, and the one he did to Cody today, looked a little bit ridiculous, in my opinion. And by the way, Who Dat tonight, I got 3 things to say about Who Dat in a few minutes. Decent trainer. I hear from people he's a decent trainer. But I've also seen some great hitting coaches in baseball that batted .210. Just because you could teach others how to hit the ball doesn't mean that you could hit the ball all that great. I swear on Jesus Christ. I try not to bring up religion on these shows, but I swear on God. Maybe that's a little more generic. It shouldn't be, but I watched tonight QT Marshall struggle to reverse the tombstones with Cody. And there was a point where QT Marshall buckle bombed Cody in the corner. First of all, the buckle bomb looked awfully light. But after he threw Cody in the corner, if you go back and watch it, on the front center camera, QT Marshall, did any of you see that? QT Marshall goes to Cody and is like, go up. Literally Watch the clip back. He throws Cody in the corner at the buckle bomb and does this. And what happens? I think that's when Cody went up and they did the tombstone exchange. You know, I always go out of my way to say that this man does a crazy amount of work behind the scenes for AEW. And again, I hear that he is a hell of a good trainer for the young stars of tomorrow. But, you know, some of this stuff that I see, I don't know if it was Red Velvet, that he was around ringside. It was during a commercial break, too, that he was right by the fans at ringside. And I thought it was Red Velvet, like grabbed his arms. And you thought he was getting crucified on the cross. Didn't even struggle. She's holding his arms. And all he's going is, and Cody hits him. And if somebody grabs my arms, I try to, you know, even though it looks kind of goofy, I try to struggle in storyline to break away. No, he's like this. It's not a good look, man. It's not a good look. Sam, yeah, maybe I see a lot of things that others don't. As long as I don't see dead people. So, anyway, you know, got to do a couple of extra shout-outs from now on these shows. I started thinking about it. Like, you know, my members, my elite channel members here, I got to show them more love. But not only do I have to show them love, I have to show love to my other channel members. These are the elite of the elite. La Nostra Familia, which means my great family. Big shout out to these special individuals. And again, for my channel members, I think this Sunday I'll be doing the next Q&A. The thread is up there and the voicemail is up there. You can leave a voicemail and I will play it on the show also. So if you want to check it out, see what you get, you know, check it out. Not trying to throw a money grab, but if anybody wants to sign up, pretty cool. And we'll be doing the pay-per-view predictions contest for WrestleMania Backlash next weekend. So big shout out to those great people. So in 2 weeks, 25 days actually, Double or Nothing. Kenny Omega will take on either Pac or Orange Cassidy. Feels like it may be Orange Cassidy. Who knows? Maybe they change it. Also, Hikaru Shida will be defending the Women's Championship against Britt Baker. And I know a lot of you out there think Britt Baker's getting this belt. She has worked her ass off over the last year to really improve. I mean, I know this sounds offensive now, but I think over a year ago, I think a lot of people, you know, kind of agree with me. You remember I did a little vote over here about 13, 14 months ago. I said, which should we call Britt Baker? Should we call her Britt Bella? Because she reminded us of Nikki Bella. You know, just everything about her. You know, the only thing she didn't do was just like, you know, throw her ass around like Nikki Bella does when she's, you know. Every time I do that, I look like the chipmunk from Caddyshack. Or we called her Dr. Shit Baker because she just seemed like overhype and shit in the ring. She is dramatically improved. I don't know if it's on the level of Raquel Gonzalez. I wouldn't say that. But Britt Baker has improved enough that I have no issues if Britt Baker beats Shida for the Women's Championship. But I will say this. COVID or no COVID. And I don't want to have to blame everything on COVID. But if Hikaru Shida loses that championship in 2 weeks, you go back and you look at Hikaru Shida's championship reign in AEW. This has nothing to do with her ability. This has nothing to do with the fact that she is one of the top women in wrestling, period. But if you take the time to look at her run and look at her record and look at the number of matches and who she faced, I truly believe it is one of the worst championship reigns in recent memory or our generation. And I'm not talking about like Chavo Classic winning the women's championship for a short period of time. I'm not talking about somebody who wins a belt that is terrible in the ring. I'm talking about somebody who is a star, who is established, who is one of the top talents, and just has a pathetic run. And I don't blame any of that on Shida. So please do not misconstrue what I say, but you go back and you look at her reign. If it comes to an end in 25 days, that is one of the worst championship reigns by someone, a worthy, deserving champion in recent memory. I said 25 days one fall. I see the little remarks you make towards me and everyone else, and it's all cool. But, I did say a few times, 25 days. I know, 25 days is a lot more than 2 weeks. But 25 days. 25 days. So we'll see what happens with Shida versus Britt Baker. Next week, Jon Moxley defends the IWGP US Championship against Yuji Nagata. I think people need to keep in perspective Yuji Nagata's age. I watched some of his New Japan matches last year. Guy could still go. Guy's, 50? Around, maybe even a little bit more than that. And, yeah, he actually did wrestle quite a few times on WCW. I just hope the match delivers the hype because, look, Yuji Nagata is a Hall of Famer. Yuji Nagata is one of the better Japanese wrestlers of our generation. But let's be honest, AEW fans, NXT fans, Ring of Honor, MLW, NWA fans, they're not tearing the house down to see Yuji Nagata have a match in the United States. So it's a big deal for anybody that likes New Japan, that follows Yuji Nagata. And since Moxley has had some pretty damn good matches in Japan, but this match has to deliver. Because if it doesn't, it's hyped up and hyped up and hyped up. And then, it's going to be considered a letdown for a lot of people out there. So anyway, let's get into a few specifics for tonight. And then we'll get into some quick thoughts about NXT and we'll call it, because believe it or not, we've already gone almost an hour. Time flies when you're having fun. So, and I have the NXT rating as well. So let me clear this up right away. Twice tonight, AEW had a parental advisory posted on the show. The first parental advisory was at the very beginning of the show. Now you go back and you watch the first hour of AEW Dynamite, which was pre-recorded matches. There was nothing about the first hour that was parental discretion advised. Yes, it's a 2-hour show. I could understand posting that right before Blood and Guts. But here's the thing. When they posted that parental advisory, that, parental discretion should be advised, and then you flash a TV 14 rating, that was, to me, hype. That was to try to make this match feel like, oh my God, what are they going to do? Holy shit, what are they going to do? That was all hype. Not knocking it. I have no problem with it. But when you put the TV 14 in that corner, if there was shit that was going to be on there, parental discretion advised, trust me, they would do that before a lot of TNT movies and a lot of TNT events, that has a lot worse on there. Yes, we saw a lot of blood tonight, but we saw a hell of a lot of blood in Britt Baker versus Thunder Rosa. Remember, that match was pre-recorded. That was not live. And look at all the blood that happened in that match. Look at the thumbtacks and everything else that went on in that match. Why? Because they weren't inside the cage? Parental discretion not needed? So that was done to hype up the match as being even more brutal. I have no issue with it because the match delivered. But again, if this was something really over the top, I don't know how they would have handled the TV 14 rating. So I don't recall, Benjamin, them ever using that before. I don't with AEW. I honestly don't remember. But even the way it was put on the screen, It had the AEW Dynamite logo on there. You know, think about when you watch other TV stations and there's a parental discretion advised for strong language or blood or violence or, you know, certain acts. I mean, the network puts their discretion. This had an AEW Dynamite logo on it. Didn't it have an AEW Dynamite logo on it? I could swear it did. Maybe it didn't. But I remember something about it that it just felt more of just a graphic to hype up stuff. Either way, the TV-14 is the TV-14 rating. If children are not supposed to watch a TV-14 show, then you might as well put that up for any TV-14 show, right? Opening match, Jon Moxley, Eddie Kingston, beating Michael Nakasawa, Kenny Omega. They teased it first that Kenny Omega was not there. Don Callis saying that Nakasawa is on his own in this match. Kenny Omega came out literally like 30 seconds later, trying to attack them from behind. To have this as an opening match, again, you know, it felt like filler. It felt like they wanted the big names on this show, obviously for ratings. You know, it was a fun match, but in the end, Kenny Omega walks out on Nakasawa, and you have Moxley applying the rear naked choke on Nakasawa, and Eddie Kingston, him and Kenny Omega followed after Omega walked off and hits the half and half suplex. They get the win, and you see the Young Bucks in the background. One of them is wearing, I think it was Nick, wearing like all Hawaiian colors. They come out. Good Brothers come out. Good Brothers start beating down on Moxley and Kingston. Omega is there. Cutlet is there with his video camera. And, you know, again, clusterfuck. And I'm not knocking it. But you see every week AEW's turned into Crash TV. That's the best way to describe it. And again, I used to be a diehard ECW fan. And ECW had a boatload of Crash TV. But again, if this is what AEW wants their identity to be, so be it. But let's also keep in mind, look at Kenny Omega's world title run since he's won it. How many months does he have it now? 6? Go recap his run. When I still think of his match against Joey Janela as one of his better matches since he's been champion, although not for the belt. I mean, that kind of says it all. You know, the belt collector. And then 6-man, tag team, promo, sitting in a truck, sitting in a limo, sitting on a golf course. He's one of the top talents in the world. Remember last year I made the prediction. Kenny Omega will be the wrestler of the year of 2021. But the way he's being used all across the board. Now, I laughed at these people saying, oh, Kenny Omega caused Impact Wrestling's buy rate to go up 8 times. First of all, it's not a publicly traded company. Anybody could say what the fuck they want to it, but they don't tell you the actual buy rate. Because not for nothing, but if my buy rate is usually 1,500 or 2,000 and it went up to 8,000, you know, that's not very impressive. And you mean to tell me that 8 times the fans bought the pay-per-view and the ratings go down when he wins the belt? Last week, remember, last week's Impact Wrestling rating was 120,000 viewers. Second lowest since last year. I mean, Kenny Omega, when he debuted on Impact Wrestling, I think that rating was 220,000 viewers. He wins the belt. 4 months of a long storyline. He wins the belt. And 8 times the people that bought the Impact Wrestling pay. This is why Impact Wrestling is so, pardon my language, so fucked up right now. And people don't even realize it. They think Kenny Omega versus Rich Swann was the reason why their pay-per-view buy rate went up 8 times, even though I heard that it's not 8 times. How's about giving credit to all the Impact stars that were on that pay-per-view? Anybody out there stop and think? None of these people are giving credit to any of the other people who are on Impact that wrestled. You know, yes, Mauro Ranallo was an awesome touch as well. But to immediately credit it to Kenny Omega, and then the first Impact after he wins the belt, the numbers go down from the week before. Come on, who's trying to kid who? Who's trying to kid who? Let's see what Impact rating is this Thursday. Can't blame it on Biden. Can't blame it on an NFL draft. Hopefully we don't have any tornadoes or tsunamis or earthquakes or mass shootings or, something. What are you going to blame it on this time around? So they have so hurt that promotion. It has no identity. I mean, very little identity. Very little identity. So anyway, Good Brothers, Young Bucks, everybody basically, beats down on Moxley and Kingston. And I don't know where this leads, because Moxley and Kingston, how are they factored into this pay-per-view coming up? Are they going to take on the Good Brothers? Maybe. Next week, and I know I'm going a little ahead because you all saw this last week, SCU challenges the Young Bucks last week, and then all of a sudden, oh, look at this, number one contenders match. You knew SCU was winning this match today, and they won. And now next week they take on the Young Bucks for the Tag Team Championships. The interesting thing about it was when they hyped up that match twice late in the show today, I don't recall the announcers ever saying at all if SCU loses that they're done as a team. I don't recall it. I know my voice is a little scratchy. Did a lot of talking the last 2 weeks, and I think it's kind of catching up to me a little bit. Cody Rhodes versus Who Dat. And I already talked about some of the parts in the match. It was not a bad match. But, for a night as big as Blood and Guts, I don't know. It just, to me, when the fans are chanting, you suck, QT sucks. QT Marshall, and again, it's no personal agenda against this guy. But does this guy watch the video back and say, man, I'm so over. These fans can't stand me. I'm so over. Nobody gives a shit if you have a nice car and you post a picture on Twitter. There's a lot of people that watch AEW that could own a car like that, but they're like, you know what? Let me save my money. We're in COVID. Maybe I keep a nest egg for my future. Cody, late in the match, somehow got busted up in the eye. I watched some of the match back. I could not find the moment. And again, we had some of those really ridiculous moments. Him actually telling Cody to go up. That, to me, is just beyond unacceptable. You talk under your breath and it gets caught on a mic. Okay, that happens from time to time. But to visibly with your hands, seriously, if AEW had any balls, put him in a match next week or the week after where he's got to have one hand tied behind his back. Take the hand that he did that, tie it behind his back, and let him get his ass kicked. Because that's just not acceptable. What I didn't like tonight also in that match is Cody's got the belt. You all saw that. Cody has the belt, the weight belt. And the ref, Bryce, I think it was Bryce, is telling Cody, get the belt out of the ring, get the belt out of the ring, get the belt out of the ring. He takes Cody's belt and he throws it. I don't care, entertainment or not, for a referee to chuck somebody, all I kept thinking to myself was Terry Funk, Mel Phillips, 1985. I mean, you do that to Terry Funk's garb, you see what happens to you. He chucks it. But then what happens? QT Marshall has his own weight belt and whips Cody with it right in front of the referee. No DQ. No DQ. And what's the AEW explanation? Oh, the referees have their own discretion if they want to disqualify somebody or not. The fuck does that mean? That's lazy-ass shit. That's lazy-ass shit. If anybody could break the rules, then there are no rules. I know it sounds a little cliche, but, you can do, what it reminds me of? Reminds me of I think it was the match with Lance Storm in WCW. And it was done with Triple H years later. I don't know if it was done with Rollins. Might have been. I don't know why Rollins is coming to mind. And a lot of people seem to agree with what I'm saying. You have a match, and then, remember the match, I think Lance Storm's is probably one of the most legendary. It was in Canada. And whatever the finish was, they decided to change the finish. Oh, now it's going to be this. I know with Triple H, there was a regular match. Oh, now the match is going to be no DQ. Oh, now the match is going to be falls count anywhere. Oh, now the match is going to be like you keep changing the rules. And yes, that's for storyline. But when you could do that with any match simply because it goes against what you want to do in a match, I mean, take those ring ropes and not going to say anything else with that. Scorpio Sky, Ethan Page, interviewed by Alex Marvez. They're up on the balcony. And that was done more, like I said, everybody was watching the elevated screen. And AJ versus Roman. Good one, Richard. Good one, Richard. They're on the balcony, and Scorpio Sky criticizing Sting. Riddle me this, riddle me that. Who's afraid of the big black bat? And basically he says, Steve, he called him by his real name. Steve, you're no longer the franchise player. I'm the franchise player now, bitch. Ethan Page talking smack to Darby Allin. Darby shows up trying to beat them up. I love the visual of Scorpio Sky running from one side of the balcony to the other with the big garbage can and smashes him in the head. And then they throw him down the stairs. And I don't know if he legitimately hurt himself. But the fall looked great. But if he breaks his fucking arm, if he broke his arm or seriously hurt it, which I hope he didn't, I truly hope he didn't hurt himself. But sooner or later, they're going to do one of these stunts with Darby Allin, and he's going to get seriously injured. And who's to blame for it? Seriously. I'll never forget when he did that one spot and landed on the ladder, and then, got injured. What the fuck did you think was going to happen? You think it was like a video game, like Sonic, when you run through a coin, suddenly the coin disappears? No, the ladder was going to disappear. Horrendous. But the spot looked good. But there's a reason why, other than that spot, all I think about is Zach Allen and Brock Lesnar. Because nobody really does that. Although I remember Mick Foley, he went down a flight of stairs also on an episode of Raw a long time ago. But there's a reason why you remember moments like that, because number one, they don't happen often, and number two, they shouldn't happen, period. And it was pre-recorded too. So, you could, obviously that spot wasn't edited. There was no cushions. There was none of this taped to like soft cardboard or whatever it was. Let me make this clear. When Jericho landed on, that floor was sturdy enough that if somebody walked on it, it wouldn't cave in. It's like a hard, I don't want to say a hard cardboard, but the thing is they avoided that area for a reason. So that spot would be Jericho with the padding underneath. But I know I'm going out of place, but you don't want Jericho to legitimately, fall and land like that. So anyway, Dr. Britt Baker, she takes on Julia Hart and beats her. And Julia Hart, I don't know much about her. I will check out some of her resume, and maybe next week we'll talk about her a little bit. But Britt Baker wins on a squash, and then we find out that she's going to be taking on Sheeta at Double or Nothing. So, Chris, it wasn't cardboard, but I can't remember what it's called. It's not poster board either. But one of you said it actually about 2 weeks ago, that you buy the cheap, like the CD organizers or the DVD organizers, and it's not really wood, but it's like some type of board material, and after a while it like bends and it warps, and you could literally like break it over your head if you want to. So it's not poster board, but it's something board. And I know someone is going to write it in the chat room. It's not plywood, particle board. Thank you, Gordon. That's it. It's a very thick particle board. That's what Jericho went through. It was a good visual. It's a storyline. It's a good visual. We had a video of Taz analyzing Christian Cage and, you know, talking about his match with Powerhouse Hobbs. Again, all this is doing is milking weeks with Cage. Milking weeks. Outwork shouldn't be everyone. It should be outwork everyone every 3 weeks. Outwork every 3 weeks. I don't think Christian should be on every week. But please, you know, they should have kind of like brought him in more on the low. Wearing a shirt like that, I mean, obviously Christian has had a Hall of Fame career. Hell, I had that picture up for how many months? Hoping that he would get in the Hall of Fame. The last 2 years it didn't happen. But, you know, they're not really utilizing him. And in the process, you see some names that are just being thrown aside. I mean, even Pac. I mean, there was a bunch of weeks where people like, holy shit, yeah, what happened to Pac? And then he shows up, and then a couple of weeks he's off. But yet, you know, somehow he's still the number 2 contender. I always thought when a number 1 contender beats a number 2 contender, no, I'm sorry, when a number 2 contender beats a number 1 contender, the number 2 contender is now the number 1 contender, and the number 1 contender is now the number 2 contender. Which means that Brian Cage should be the number 1 contender, and Hangman Page should be the number 2 contender. So, how did this happen with Orange Cassidy? I mean, do we have a new list that I'm not aware of? AEW World Championship, Tag Team Championship, number 1 contenders match. SCU beating the Varsity Blondes, beating Jurrasic Express, beating the Acclaimed. Oh, I know this is going to be horrendous. I don't rap anyone. I am terrible at it. Should I do it? Should I make a fool out of myself? Yes, I have to look at the lyrics as I do this. I can't do it on memory. But should I read you the lyrics of what the Acclaimed said tonight? Oh, I'm going to regret this. Because I got to think of the beat in my head and the cadence. Should I just read it like a typical white boy? Yo, it's the Acclaimed. Remember, didn't Tony Schiavone, wasn't there something that people paid Tony Schiavone to just read lyrics? But he wouldn't actually like do the lyrics like hip hop. He would just read the lyrics like he's reading a book. That is some of the funniest shit, man. Some of the funniest shit. If I fuck this up, then I'm going to just kill the beat and I'll just read it to you. Yo, it's the Acclaimed. 2 sexy kids about to make Daniels quit the wrestling biz. Varsity Blondes, you're a temporary thing. In 10 years, you'll be on... Bye. See, I fucked it up already. All right, see, I got to get in the mood. So let's... give me one more chance to redeem myself. Oh, hold on a second. I know what it is. We got to restart it. All right. Let's try it again. Okay, let's try it again. Let's see what happens. Oh, I'm going to regret this. I know I'm going to screw it up. Yo, it's the Acclaimed. 2 sexy kids about to make Daniels quit the wrestling biz. Varsity Blondes, you're a temporary thing. In 10 years, you'll be on dark side of the ring. Jungle, I'll slap you like a John Stossel. Luchasaurus, I'm gonna... I fucked it up. Give me one more chance. One more chance. Please, one more chance. I was doing it so good before. All right, one more chance. All right, no pressure, no pressure. Maybe if I move my hands. Yo, it's the Acclaimed. Two sexy kids about to make Daniels quit the wrestling biz. Varsity Blondes, you're a temporary thing. In 10 years, you'll be on dark side of the ring. Jungle, I'll slap you like John Stossel. Luchasaurus, I'ma turn you to a fossil. Yo, Acclaimed is up. We're gonna take the tag belts off those two young... No, I fucked it up the very end. All right, one more time. I promise this will be the last time. We're almost there. We're almost there. We're almost there. I don't mind poking fun at myself. Last time. All right, last time. Yo, it's the Acclaimed. Two sexy kids about to make Daniels quit the wrestling biz. Varsity Blondes, you're a temporary thing. In 10 years, you'll be on dark side of the ring. Jungle, I slap you like John Stossel. Luchasaurus, I'ma make you to a fossil. Yo, Acclaimed is up. We're gonna take the tag belts off those two young cucks. Something like that. Not very good. I probably just should have read it. Yo, it's the Acclaimed, two sexy kids about to make Daniels quit the wrestling biz. Varsity Blondes, you're a temporary thing. In 10 years, you'll be on dark side of the ring. Jungle, I'll slap you like you John Stossel. Luchasaurus, I'ma turn you to a fossil. Yo, Acclaimed is up. We're going to take the tag belts off those two young cucks. Something like that. Believe it or not, like I said, their cadence is not actually on point, but that's pretty much what their rap was tonight. The bottom line is they lost. SCU got the win, and SCU will take on the Young Bucks next week. I personally, my opinion, just my opinion, I personally would have loved to have seen them hype this up for a couple of weeks leading to the pay-per-view and try to make it seem important that if SCU lose this match, they split up, they disband. I think for all of the career that Kazarian and Daniels have teamed up with each other, you would think them wrestling on a pay-per-view, losing this match and disbanding and forced to, retire as a tag team would be worthy for a pay-per-view, especially in front of a full live crowd. I could picture the crowd giving them a standing ovation, but no, because we have to satisfy TNT. Everything has got to have a huge stipulation behind it. Soon, if this person loses, they're going to be shot. Not to that obvious level, but I would have rather seen it on a pay-per-view. So, Orange Cassidy, he interrupts Kenny Omega. Kenny Omega's being interviewed because they got a major announcement for Double or Nothing, and next week it's going to be Pac and Orange Cassidy taking on each other, and whoever wins faces Omega at Double or Nothing. And Omega is basically trying to push for Pac versus Omega because of Pac's ability, basically discounting how good Orange Cassidy is. That's why it almost feels like it's got to be Cassidy versus Omega. And Cassidy will put on a much better performance than Kenny Omega thinks. And that's where it feels. I mean, the SCU winning was pretty much predictable by all of us last week. It feels like it'll be predictable by all of us with Orange Cassidy. Orange Cassidy comes out. By the way, anybody notice Orange Cassidy's abs? I mean, he's been working his ass off. I mean, again, when the fan, I know I said it 3 times tonight, but we all knew it was going to happen when the fans returned, as would be Orange Cassidy's push. But I did get a kick out of Kenny Omega at the very end saying, come back in 10 years when you're an adult. And he said, for now, I'll see you whenever, about whatever. Because do I need to explain what that is? If you don't know what that means, you have never watched an AEW episode. So anyway, okay, what's this guy doing over here? All right, do we have to remove someone over here? I think we have to remove someone over here. It's unfortunate. It happens once in a while, but all right, we got to do what we got to do. So, bye-bye. Yep, that's it. Sorry, everyone. So, next week, Jon Moxley versus Yuji Nagata for the IWGP U.S. Championship. Pac versus Orange Cassidy, the winner, taking on Kenny Omega, Double or Nothing. Miro versus Darby Allin. And I liked what Miro said tonight. The man that doesn't mind dying will meet the man that doesn't mind killing him. Yes, they use kill words on the show. It's not real. We get it. Yeah, Michael, if that pops up again, like I said, I got to start adding more moderators. I try to monitor the show, but there's so many things going on. But if any of you out there, spot someone, just type it, all of you, and I'll take care of business. So I know who's, just joking around here, and I know who should be removed. So do I think Miro will win the title? Like I said earlier, AEW's treatment of the big men has been a little bit pathetic, in my opinion, and somebody's got to break through. Brody Lee broke through. Brody Lee is an exception, but a lot of these other, like I said, if Miro fails, it's got to be because of Kip Sabian. But if Miro faces Darby Allin, and who knows, that might end up closing out Dynamite next week. If he loses clean to Darby Allin, to me, it's just going to feel like another Lance Archer situation. So I would like to see Miro win. Nothing against Darby Allin. But what happened to Matt Hardy's crew? What happened to... I know the Butcher had to be hospitalized. We don't know exactly why. I don't want to speculate. He seems to be okay if you go on his social media. But what happened to the Matt Hardy storyline? You still got Private Party. You still got The Blade. You still got Matt Hardy. What happened to all that revenge on the Dark Order and Darby Allin? Nothing. See what happens? There are so many examples of that. You could just throw that out there like, yeah, what happened with this? What happened with this? What happened with this? Oh, my God. Ty Conti has that one match. That's it. She's forgotten. That's it. Done with TV for the time being. They're trying to do too much at the same time. And you could have 2 YouTube shows, 3 YouTube shows, but it's very, very scattered. So, oh no, Benjamin, I hear you about Matt with the passing of his dad. Absolutely. But I'm just saying, as far as the storyline itself, it's not even mentioned. You don't even see Private Party. Why wasn't Private Party, in like some vignettes or promos? Nothing. It's just forgotten. Totally forgotten. So, also next week, Jade Cargill will be interviewed, and Cody has a Double or Nothing announcement. So we'll see what Cody has to say. So now we get to Blood and Guts. And look, I don't know how to even recap this because there was so much physicality and so much brawling. I will tell you the order of entries, and we'll get into a couple of specific spots on this match. But it definitely felt a lot like old school War Games. Somebody had mentioned earlier comparing it to NXT TakeOver's War Games. Look, obviously AEW cannot call it War Games. WWE has that right. But it felt more like old school War Games than NXT did. NXT, yeah, there were spots tonight as well. There were spots, but to me, this was told so much more of a story than 2 teams that don't like each other. Like, specific characters had specific roles tonight. To me, the star of the match, if you really want to narrow it down to one person, was Sammy Guevara. Sammy Guevara, there was one point where he executed a Spanish fly standing on the middle of the rope on the middle of the ring. I'm not talking about a corner turnbuckle, actually gave it to Spears. I mean, Spears obviously had to jump to the next rope, but the rings were side by side, and he's standing on the middle rope, and you're looking at it, and his legs are wobbly, and this guy pulled off a Spanish fly. It's a move that everybody will always remember, and it was like, holy shit. Was it necessary, though? It was such a risky spot to do. I personally think for fans, doing a Spanish fly off the top turnbuckle, yeah, it may not have been talked about as much of doing it off of the rope on the middle of the side of the ring, but, that's very, very risky. But Sammy Guevara, I mean, took himself to another level today. He did the coast-to-coast. Again, the Shawn Spears. Poor Shawn Spears. Shawn Spears took a beating tonight. But Guevara, I thought, was the star. And you think about it, last week, and I don't know if this is going to turn into a storyline. This may shift MJF versus Guevara. In fact, that's where I think this is going. Jericho will be off TV for a little bit, hopefully. I hope they don't bring him back to TV next week after doing that spot. And by the way, I know Jim Ross is up there in age in his career, and I always defend Jim Ross for commentating. But can you, save your energy to the spot where Jericho falls off the top of the cage? I mean, when Jericho, he fell through, and yes, we know it was cushioned and everything, but it felt like Jim Ross was so matter-of-fact to be like, they better get some officials out here. I mean, it felt very, he is shown crazy-ass energy for a lot less in AEW matches, and that, I thought, was, could someone damn get help out here for this person? And it was just like, they better get officials or medical out here. I thought it was very matter of fact. But this is going to extend that storyline because Guevara last week offered to be the one-man advantage. He accepted the one-man advantage for his team. Tonight, Guevara is the one that gave up for his team. So I don't know where this goes. I hope to God they don't tease the Inner Circle upset with Guevara, because I could almost picture this. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I can almost picture this next week. You offered us to have the one-man advantage. You gave up for our team. So I just hope they don't start teasing this split shit again, because it failed early in the year. I hope they don't do that again. I hope they don't do that. But Guevara and Dax were the first two in there. Shawn Spears came in next for the one-man advantage for Team Pinnacle. Then it was Ortiz, followed by Dax, Harwood, Santana follows, then Wardlow, Jake Hager. Then MJF was the final entrant for the Pinnacle. Jericho was the final entrant for the Inner Circle. I enjoyed, for as short as it lasted, the little confrontation that Wardlow and Hager had in the middle of the ring, exchanging punches. There was one moment, I think you all saw this, there was one moment where it looked a little scary, but it was more of just slipping than anything else. There was a point where the Inner Circle was dominating this match, just dominating the match. Once Jericho got in there and the match officially started, the Inner Circle pretty much dominated, which was a bad sign because once we saw the amount of domination the Inner Circle had, you kind of felt like Pinnacle was going to come out on top. In fact, most of you out there expected Pinnacle to win. They needed this win more than, obviously, the Inner Circle. But Wardlow tried to get the upper hand for his team, only to be greeted with a couple of chair shots. And before the big chair shot from Sammy, Jake Hager ran towards Wardlow. Wardlow picked him up and then slipped and almost dumped Hager on his head. but then he immediately picked up Hager again, and then he was greeted with 2 more chair shots, and then Sammy wailed him in the head with one, knocked him on his ass. The one point tonight that I actually had a little laugh at, I don't know if you remember this, but when Jericho first entered and the match officially started, you had the Pinnacle, well, you see this in the opposite side. So for your viewing, Pinnacle was on this side in that ring, Inner Circle was on this ring. They had just the stare down. And crowd is eating it up. They're just staring at each other. And then they start running after each other. You know, like a war, 2 colonies, and they just charge after each other. But I thought it was funny because there's only one problem with that. You had ring ropes to block it. And there was one point where Hager kind of like tried to dive over the rope, and the rope was like, you know how they say, I am the table? Tonight was, I am the rope. So they charged at each other, but then the ropes were in the way. So it was a little funny. But you didn't have too many weapons early in the match. Yeah, they all got tangled. Jason, you're right. They all got tangled. It kind of looked a little funny. Not knocking the match. I enjoyed the match tremendously. Told a wonderful story. Sammy Guevara with the coast to coast to Shawn Spears. Ortiz holding the chair in front of Shawn Spears' head. Guevara with the coast to coast, which looked great. Jericho brings out Floyd, uses the bat. Early on, we really didn't have too much in the weapons department. After the match officially started, that's when you started to see weapons. Santana takes out a fork, a la Abdullah the Butcher, and, you know, stabs MJF in the head with it, licks the fork after, something that Abby used to do. And then the fans are chanting one more time, so he obliges and does it again. And MJF is just a bloody mess. Jericho removes the turnbuckle and smashes MJF with it. There was another point where MJF is laid out on the ring, and members of the Inner Circle were all taking shots at MJF. They were all taking turns, slapping him around. Then we go to commercial break. And during the commercial break, Tully Blanchard nails Ref Bryce, gets the key, opens it up. MJF climbs the cage. Jericho follows him, and Jericho puts the walls of Jericho onto MJF. And MJF is teasing that he's going to submit. And by the way, the crowd is so freaking hot for the match. Crowd made it so much more fun. Props to everybody. Yes, there was a point also where Cash Wheeler, he sprung Ortiz into the side of the cage, and Ortiz fell down and was almost like wedged between the ring and the cage. There was an area where you could just like walk around along the side. So for a little while, it looked like he was wedged in it. Yeah. I don't think that was supposed to happen either. But, you know, he was okay. And that's the most important thing. But getting back to wrap up the match, Jericho has the walls of Jericho on MJF on the top of the cage. And I tell you, you know, you look back at Mankind. I don't mean Mankind as in all of us. I mean the wrestler, Mick Foley. And you look back at Mick Foley when he was doing stand-up comedy. And this is why, I guess, Bray Wyatt doing the Mandible Claw at first, I kept thinking of Mick Foley's stand-up comedy. But the difference is that, you know, Bray Wyatt, you know, he supposedly did it a little bit differently. But Mick Foley used to joke around years later that the Mandible Claw was such almost a ridiculous move because all you had to do was just bite on his fingers and you'd have to break the hold. You know, and, you know, of course, we probably thought about that throughout the years of him doing the Mandible Claw, but because we enjoyed him and wrestling so much, like, we didn't really think about it all that much. Like, I always told you stories about my Uncle Joe revealing to me as a kid that wrestling was fake. That's something your Uncle Joe would show you. All he's got to do is bite his fingers. Just close your mouth. and the hold is broken. After MJF was put in the walls of Jericho, MJF nails Jericho in the nuts. And, I'm watching that tonight, and I immediately thought of Mick Foley, and I said to myself, wow, just think about that, all those years of putting someone in a Boston Crab. And I honestly do not recall many times ever saying as a fan, like yelling at my TV, just hit him in the nuts and break it. So I got a kick out of that today, that I never really thought about that before. Like, oh, break the walls of Jericho, just punch him in the nuts. So he nails him in the nuts. And then MJF puts the salt of the earth on Jericho. And I could have taken tons of screenshots tonight, but I wanted to really take in the match and enjoy it. Again, I wish there would have been no commercials, but, I'll take it. I mean, maybe they can release the match without commercials. They could do that. I hope they do. Yeah, look, there's a lot of ways to get out of holds, but something as simple as just punching someone in the nuts is not one that really came to mind in the past all that much. Even back in the 80s when I would watch people put wrestlers in Boston Crabs. Even when my friends used to put each other in Boston Crabs. I was putting moves. We wrestled backyard when we were kids. I've always brought this up before. The two worst things that ever had happened to me was the sleeper hold and the Masked Superstar neck breaker. My friend, if you've ever seen the Masked Superstar neck breaker when he rocks and then turns around and spins, my friend did that to me right at the edge of the stairs in his basement. And when he turned me over and we went down, my head hit the edge of his step and I was knocked out. Totally knocked out. I mean, yeah, I did the Superfly splash off the top of a sliding pond in Juniper Park and broke my arm, but that was more because my friend turned out to be a pussy and legitimately rolled out of the way. And unfortunately, you don't have time in midair to go, uh-oh. Like in wrestling, you jump off the top rope. You see how Ricochet or AJ Styles somehow conveniently land on their feet when somebody moves out of the way. Do that for real. You ain't improvising. That's it. I just fell and broke my arm. But when he we gave each other crabs, Jason. Yep. Crabs. A splat. That was it. Broke my arm. But getting the Masked Superstar neck breaker on the step knocked my ass out. But I don't recall when we used to put each other in Boston Crabs. I don't recall anybody ever thinking, oh, hit him in the nuts. So MJF puts the salt of the earth on Jericho. Then he takes out the Dynamite diamond ring, hits Jericho with it. Jericho busted open. Then MJF is looking at the side of the cage, and we think, well, the announcer said it was cement, but it was actually, like you said, the particle board, thick particle board with the vinyl covering over it, because obviously we don't want Jericho to be crippled from that shot. And Shivani, trying to be extra emotional, that no good piece of shit. He actually said that because MJF was teasing he was going to throw Jericho off the side. So he pulls Jericho towards the end, and he's telling the Inner Circle, submit, give up. Otherwise, I'm going to throw him off the cage. Hager teased that he was going to try to climb the cage. MJF is like, you go one step further, I throw him over. And Guevara gave up. And the match is over. Not the outcome that a lot of people wanted, but the outcome a lot of people expected. And again, I think this storyline progresses now with Guevara. And I'm sorry for repeating myself, but I hope they do not do the storyline where the Inner Circle is not happy with Sammy for the one-man advantage and then causing his team to lose by giving up. Yeah, referee should have never referred to it as concrete, but look, what are you going to say? What are you going to call it? Metal grating, metal floor? So I could understand that. But then after Guevara surrenders, remember the 2 words that MJF said that he was going to tell Jericho. Thank you. Sarcastically. Because, Jericho always goes over on everyone else. This time, MJF went over on Jericho, and then MJF proceeds to throw Jericho off the side of the cage. Jericho falls back. Look good. I think if those 2 particle boards didn't split, I think it would have looked even better, because you could see the particle board underneath and you realize they were vinyl tiles. Again, doesn't really faze me at all. I mean, you knew that obviously it was going to protect his fall. And again, my immediate thought was Rikishi in the truck filled with hay. I mean, would you think Rikishi was going to go through a windshield? So maybe the spot didn't need to happen, but this writes off Jericho hopefully for a few weeks. Jericho deserves a vacation, I think, for his age. And this also advances the storyline. I really believe Guevara is going to be the focus of the storyline, and I think it may lead to a feud with MJF versus Guevara, which is what a lot of people want to see. Including me, because a lot of people feel those 2 are I'm not saying that they're ever going to be on the level of The Rock and Triple H but it's almost like they're Triple H and Rock, like 1995, 96. You know what I mean? Like, it's their future stars of tomorrow that you could see are progressing really, really well. So that was Dynamite today. I loved it. I didn't care about the pre-recorded stuff earlier. Loved the crowd. And I really think that they could very well get 1.2 million viewers. I think they deservingly could get 300,000 extra viewers because of Blood and Guts. Any promotion that is a pay-per-view main event. And it delivered. It delivered. The first hour was not bad. It kept my interest the whole night. So I really never felt the moment where I really wanted to change the channel. So I thought AEW did a great job tonight. Did a great job. So props to AEW for a great night. NXT. Now, want to talk briefly about NXT because, as I brought up Wednesday, it's a little different with NXT because for the first 3 weeks that they were on the USA Network Tuesday night, all those people that after a year and a half said there was never really a war, you could see the stark difference of NXT on Tuesday. There's no more stress of urgency. There's no more wrestling alternative on the same night. So if people want to watch wrestling, chances are they're going to watch NXT and not really change the channel. They might change it here and there for a match they may not like, but if you feel like watching wrestling and you're a dedicated wrestling fan, chances are you're going to watch no matter who's on. And, we're now a month removed from TakeOver, and, I'm sorry for always bringing up her name, but that's, I don't want to compare it to The Fiend, but Xia Li had so much goddamn momentum, and for 5 weeks, nothing. We're approaching 6 weeks now. Karrion Kross, yesterday, he went at it with Pete Dunne, Kyle O'Reilly, and Finn Balor. Early in the night, Austin Theory made a little remarks to Scarlett, who was sitting at William Regal's office. I guess Karrion Kross didn't like that, so Karrion Kross next week is taking on Austin Theory. Austin Theory and Gargano attack Finn Balor also, and Karrion Kross, and leaves him laying. So to hype up next week. And I am a big fan of Karrion Kross. Karrion Kross is a friend of the family as well. But speaking of friends of the family, shout out to my YouTube channel subscribers. Much love. And I know I shouted out the family earlier. I want to shout out these wonderful people as well. These are our current subscribers. Big shout out to them. But Karrion Kross, I'm very confused right now. A couple of things I did not like yesterday with the segment. First of all, Karrion Kross, is he a heel? Is he a babyface? Is he a tweener? I'm assuming we're supposed to feel he's a tweener. WWE does not use terms like tweener. And what really confused the shit out of me was when Karrion Kross won the championship. You remember he cut that promo that following NXT. And the fans were chanting his name. He took the microphone and he pointed it to the crowd. And when you do that, that's a sign of acknowledging the crowd, showing appreciation to the crowd, and taking in their cheers. So when you hear cheers and you do that with the microphone to the crowd, you're acknowledging, you're appreciating it, and he's respecting that. So it feels babyface, okay? Then they do nothing with him for the next 2-3 weeks. So they have him come out yesterday, and when he got to the ring, WWE piped in so many freaking boos. Go back and watch it. I mean, they piped in loud boos. And then what happens? When they turn the soundboard off, you hear a handful of fans chanting his name. And what does Karrion Kross do? He does the same thing again. He points the microphone to the crowd, that he's acknowledging the crowd, showing respect. And I'm saying to myself, why would you pipe in crazy-ass boos like that and then turn around and appreciate and acknowledge those fans that are chanting TikTok? So it's really, really weird. It's not his fault. I'm not saying that at all. But, you know, WWE is not one of those to really push tweeners. Austin is probably the ultimate example or exception to the rule. But Karrion Kross, it almost feels like WWE does not know which way to go with him. That's how it feels. And I'll give you another example yesterday that just felt really, really strange to me. First of all, everybody was nailing Karrion Kross, and Karrion Kross turned into The Undertaker. Every time he went down, it was like he no-sold almost everything. And yes, he's the champion, and he fights it off. I'm not even complaining about that. But the one thing that I just thought was so strange, I never saw this with Finn Balor before. Maybe in Japan, when he was a heel, maybe this would have fit. And I brought this up yesterday on Patreon. It's almost like if any of you have seen over the years when you have a babyface champion in the ring, and then they're surrounded outside the ring by heels. You could use Retribution. You could use Spirit Squad. You could use The Shield. But you have the babyface champion in the ring. Then what happens? One member of The Shield climbs the rope, and the champion knocks him off the rope, goes back down. Another member of The Shield or a member of Retribution climbs up the rope, wants to get in there, champion knocks that person on their ass. And the heels are having a hard time getting in the ring, and they're almost frustrated at it. They did that yesterday with Finn Balor. Finn Balor tried to enter the ring like 2 or 3 times, and every time he was about to enter the ring, Karrion Kross knocked him on his ass. And it just felt backwards because Finn Balor's a babyface. And you usually never have the babyface being the one outside the ring that can't get in the ring and keeps getting their ass handed to him. So it really, some of it felt ass backwards yesterday. And when I think this needs to be a little bit clear cut. And you could see that they're either going to do Kross versus Balor versus Dunn versus O'Reilly, or they may do a three-way, and whoever wins becomes the number one contender for KROSS's belt. But I personally think you have to create a clear-cut identity for Karrion Kross. He can't just go on the mic and say, anybody in the back, come get some. The crowd, the fans don't know. I mean, some fans are going to cheer him, whether he's a heel or a babyface. That happens. I mean, when I was a kid, we all cheered for Piper, and he was a major heel. You know, we cheered for Undertaker when he first came in, he was a heel. We've cheered for heels before. So you're always going to have that group that's going to cheer for their favorites, heel or babyface. But a lot of fans out there don't know what he is. Establish a clear-cut identity for this guy. Not, I'm a fighting champion and I'll take on all comers. That sounds babyface. But then you pipe in crazy amounts of booze. So this guy didn't even get a chance to create his identity when he first beat Keith Lee for the belt because he got injured. So now he's back. Now taking on Austin Theory next week feels like, okay, maybe he's a babyface because Austin Theory's a heel. Could we make it a little more clear-cut? Because I think fans want to know what direction. I mean, obviously, we don't need to be told. Tell it in the ring. But be a little bit more clear-cut about it. So that's my comments about that yesterday. Cameron Grimes beating Asher Hale squash match. They're still doing this stuff with Ted DiBiase. And I like Ted DiBiase, don't get me wrong. But I think a majority of wrestling fans out there, they don't look at Ted DiBiase's legendary career and pop. Like, I mean, WWE piped in so many loud cheers. You would have thought there were 10,000 fans in the Capitol Wrestling Center yesterday. I mean, talk about over enforced. And remember what I have shown you for the past bunch of months. There has never been a Cameron Grimes segment where the quarter-hour rating went up. Everyone in the sayings that with the basketball that time, then the jewelry store, those quarter hours were down. You know, I'm talking about the segments. They think these segments, is Ted DiBiase going to manage him? I mean, what are we getting out of this? You know, I know it's kind of comical and everything, but I think a majority of NXT and wrestling fans out there don't enjoy this as much as maybe older fans, wrestlers, Hall of Famers, former co-workers, the wrestlers themselves. You know, this is more for them. It's not for the casual wrestling fan. Why would the casual wrestling fan care so much about Ted DiBiase? It's nice to see him. He looks like he's in great shape, great health. I've met him a few times. He's a cool guy. He's absolutely a cool guy. Let's do something with this. Let Ted DiBiase take all of Cameron Grimes' money. Seriously. Let him take him all his money. Take him to the poorhouse. And it's no longer to the moon. It's now to the VIP room. So, Isaiah Swerve Scott and Leon Ruff. This is going to surprise some of you out there. I've had a hard time getting into their feud. I enjoyed their match last night so much, I watched it again today. Leon Ruff, I'm so happy that I defended him when they first put the North American Championship on him, and a lot of people online were saying that, no, he's actually supposed to be a goof, that this is satire. And no, I mean, this feels more like underdog, getting the win. So glad I defended at the beginning, but I had such a hard time getting into this feud. And yes, I know about Isaiah Swerve Scott's work in CZW. But this match yesterday told such a phenomenal story. I truthfully believe that match between those two yesterday is in the top 5 of the best matches of the year for NXT. I'm not kidding. That's how much I enjoyed it, like last night. I mean, even with the commercial breaks, there was so much goddamn storytelling in that match yesterday. there's been wrestlers out there that haven't told that much of a story for the first 5 months of the year. Those two guys tore the house down. And I'm telling you, when they go back and they discuss match of the year for WWE, that match better be in the top 10, even if you include Raw and SmackDown as well. That's how good that match was yesterday. Everything about, I mean, look, at the very end, with the Scott getting assistance and getting the win, that, maybe kind of cheapened it a little bit, but it's false count anywhere. So it's just, anybody can interfere. It should. I absolutely loved that match yesterday. I will be, sorry for sounding biased, but I will be so freaking happy when I get the quarter-hour ratings tomorrow and I see that popped a great number, because I freaking enjoyed that match a lot yesterday. I hate, and I'm sorry for going to the very end. I just want to do that because we're talking about this. The last 5 minutes of the women's tag team match, I enjoyed immensely. Indi Hartwell jumping off the rope and doing the elbow, putting Ember Moon through the table was great. Shotzi Blackheart climbing that structure and putting Indi Hartwell through the announcer's table was phenomenal. I even laughed when Frankie Monet's dog took a shit inside the tank. But I also thought it was kind of like dopey when Shotzi Blackheart, oh, what a cute little dog. Oh, go play. And just puts on, if I'm in a building, anybody picked up my dog and then put it on the floor and said, go away, punch him right in the mouth. She put the dog, I know I'm digging too deep, but she put the dog on the floor, like, go play. Capitol Wrestling Center, the little dog, could have ran out the door. Splat. But the last 5 minutes of the match, I enjoyed. For the first 75% of that match, I wasn't feeling it. I mean, it almost felt like, hey, we've never done a street fight before. Let's do one. And things felt way too choreographed. Setting up items and then, seeing, oh, let me put a chair on top of 4 other chairs. Gee, you think somebody's going to sit in that chair? A lot of the match just felt choreographed. It didn't feel like it told the story. Last week when they got destroyed with the vase and the cupcakes and all of that, that told more of a story. It almost felt like they were berating and physically and emotionally reducing Ember Moon and Shotzi Blackheart to nothing. Yesterday, it just felt like, oh, let's do spots. Lots of spots. It didn't feel like it told much of a story. The last 5 minutes of it made up for the match itself. But I will tell you, I enjoyed Isaiah Swerve Scott and Leon Ruff 1,000 times more than I enjoyed the women's tag team match. I am very happy that Candice LeRae got a championship. You may remember about a year and a half ago when a lot of people out there were saying that Candice LeRae and Johnny Gargano should be released. There's nothing else for them to do. And, I'm not saying that I foresaw this. I didn't. But Candice LeRae is a lot better than I think some people think. And I'm sure you remember that episode where I was talking about her career and how many years she's wrestled. I don't think a lot of people realize that she's wrestling almost 20 years. And she is consistently put on great matches. Indi Hartwell getting the championship, I'm happy for her too, because she is substantially improved. But it almost feels like Indi Hartwell got that belt more because of the Dexter Lumis storyline than anything else. But she's worked her ass off enough that, based on the match yesterday, they deserve to win. They deserve to win. Benjamin, I'm not saying Candice LeRae never won a belt before. What I'm saying is that a year and a half ago, people were saying that, think about this, a year and a half ago, people were saying that Candice LeRae and Johnny Gargano should be released. A lot of people. A lot of people. And a year and a half ago, Indi Hartwell was one of the fans banging on, the NXT when Bayley and Sasha Banks won the tag titles. So you look at a year and a half later and you see how much they progressed. I mean, COVID hurt us all. But there are quite a few people that turn chicken shit into chicken salad. So good for them to win the belt. Yeah, it kind of feels a little hot potato. 3 different champions in a matter of 2 months. Yes, one of the champions only held the belt for an hour. But Swerve Scott getting the win off of Leon Ruff. Loved that match. Grimes over Asher Hale. Tommaso Ciampa and Timothy Thatcher over the Grizzled Young Veterans. I enjoyed that match. It's just like I said, I'm having a hard time getting into the Grizzled. Soon, I will take a shit during your matches. I mean, I know they got a nice little catchphrase, and they're fluent on the mic, and one of them looks like Shawn Michaels' Attitude Era. The other one looks like he should be in the Dark Order. And they're talented. They made it to the Dusty Classic finals twice, the Classic twice. But they're killers with ratings. Their numbers I don't recall ever being impressed with a quarter hour of theirs. So they got the loss yesterday against Ciampa and Thatcher. I enjoyed Ciampa and Thatcher as a tag team. Absolutely enjoy it. Now with the way, all having gold except for Austin Theory, what do you do about Austin Theory? Do you have Theory and Gargano win the tag championships against MSK? Or do you let MSK keep the belts throughout the summer? It almost feels like they got to do a storyline now because Austin Theory is the only one without gold. Sarray versus Zayda Ramier. Okay. I know there were 3 spots yesterday that left people a little bit uncomfortable with Sarray hitting, like nailing Zayda Ramier in the head. The spot where she was leaning against the side of the ring and she was nailed by Sarray is a move that's done in Yoshi wrestling all the time. That pretty much was supposed to go down the way it did. I know some of you feel that it was a little bit too stiff. Okay. All right, fine. There was another spot where Sarray slingshotted Zayda Ramier into the rope. And again, this is all about timing. And Zayda Ramier will get better in time. But she has very few years compared to Sarray. And when Sarray throws you against the ropes and she is going to follow and charge you and nail you in the head, it's all about timing. And because Zayda Ramier was a little bit too slow, Sarray was a little bit too close to the right side and clocked her, nailed her. I mean, you could see, connected big time. And then a finisher, it looked like she landed on her head. And I know some people online said, this is a little bit much. I don't know if I would have had Zayda Ramier and Sarray have a match yesterday. I would think that Sarray probably is better suited to be facing more established wrestlers who have wrestled that style. Doesn't have to be a Japanese wrestler. I personally did not put any of the blame yesterday on Sarray. I liked the little touch where we saw for a split second Zoe Stark, Zayda Ramier, and Sarray in the back, and Sarray was looking after Zayda Ramier to make sure she was okay. Kind of like that little touch. And it looks like we're going to get a feud with Zoe Stark and Toni Storm. I think she's okay, Lion. I really do. But again, your timing is off just by a little bit. That's what happens. Sarray is small and she's fast. And when you run the rope and she's charging you and is going to nail you, if you take a couple of steps too slow, she's going to be too far to the right, and you're going to absorb it even more. So, yeah, Sarray is super young still, but she's got a lot more experience in as far as matches. And again, look at her style, the Yoshi style that she has. She isn't going to suddenly wrestle a totally different style because she's in a United States wrestling company. She comes in, she's still going to do her style. And it just felt like Zayda Ramier probably wasn't the ideal choice for her yesterday. I'm not complaining about her work at all, Austin. Sarray did fine yesterday. I think they should have considered a different opponent for her. LA Knight over Jake Atlas. Sad to say it, but Jake Atlas, I personally feel when they did not turn him heel, when Drake Maverick was fighting for his wrestling life after he got released and he was still in that tournament, they missed the opportunity to have Jake Atlas screw Drake Maverick, and he would have got nuclear heat at that time because of all the love towards Drake Maverick. Ever since then, it feels zero. They tried to do something with Santos Escobar and Jake Atlas, and it fell flat, extremely flat. Jake Atlas, I feel bad because the guy actually could go, but it's not clicking. Look, if WWE does a little working relationship with MLW, Jake Atlas would be one of those guys that I would not release and send him to MLW to do a little work. I always say Yoshi. I know you pronounce it, a little bit different. I always say Joshi. Okay? Just force a habit. So those were the matches yesterday for NXT. Really, really fun show. There was one point where they had Everrise kind of teasing, they were teasing that they were going to hang out with Cameron Grimes. It was filler. I have nothing personal against Everrise, but they're just not cutting it. They're trying to do, you see with Breezango, they're on TV once and then they disappear for 3-4 weeks. There's some talents in NXT that you just feel are going nowhere. I'm going to be really curious to see what the quarter-hour ratings are. Yesterday's NXT drew 761,000 viewers. That only went up by 17,000. Remember, last week, people were blaming, other, events on NXT's numbers. They blamed AEW with Biden. They blamed Thursday Impact because of, I think there's something with it. Was the draft Tuesday or Thursday? Stop blaming it on other things. As I always say, in the 28 years that Monday Night Raw has been on TV, there's always been alternatives to watch while it's on. There's always been sports. There's always been blockbuster TV shows. There used to be Survivor. There was always political stuff going on. There's been tragedies. There's always been alternatives. You never see any of those alternatives turn around and say, numbers were disappointing. AEW, man, they knocked it out of the park with their rating. Only wrestling fans do that. And I don't understand why. I don't understand. Yeah, we've had dog show. Well, dog shows preempted it. So it's not like, but you always had playoffs, NFL, NHL, NBA, MLB. You've had Olympics. There's been tons of things over the years. So people deciding that, oh, well, you know what? Thursday's Impact, they had the Biden speech and, definitely some people that, whatever was on. I mean, even if 20, 30,000 fans chose to watch the draft or Biden or something else, that means 20, 30,000 fans chose to watch something other than you. That happens every single week. If you watch Raw's numbers, it goes up, it goes down. It goes up, it goes down. Think people just fall asleep? Because some weeks they just choose, I don't feel like watching Raw tonight. I'm going to watch something else. Some of you on my feed, I saw Monday, I'm going to skip Raw this week. So, but I think AEW has definitely a possibility of getting 1.25 million viewers tomorrow. I personally think realistically, I think there'll be more around 1,100,000. I think 1,097,000 would be considered a success. We'll see. We'll know the ratings tomorrow by 4 p.m. Eastern. So that is both your shows. I've gone 2 hours and 10 minutes, so I'm going to start wrapping this up. Tomorrow night, 10:05 p.m. Eastern, I will be here once again for AMA, Ask DT, Q&A, chat. We'll be giving away more prizes tomorrow. Last week, Alexis Rodriguez, who's tuning in now, he won $130. We did a Who Am I contest, which turned out to be Drake Maverick, that was a fun one. That was a really good one. I actually was thinking about doing a Who Am I contest tomorrow again. I have a couple of people in mind that I think would really stump you, but I haven't decided on who yet. But yeah, everyone, as always, I would seriously appreciate it very much if you enjoyed the show tonight. Smash that like button. You know, as everybody says, like, share, subscribe. I've watched tons of YouTube videos now. I watch some of Cornette stuff. I watch cooking. I watch documentaries. I watch news. I watch a lot of medical stuff with this vaccine and virus. I watch everything. And it's amazing, like 95% of the shows within the first minute. You know, if you enjoy the show, like, share, subscribe. Hit that like button. Give me a thumbs up. I never realized that until I started doing my own shows. But I would really appreciate if you enjoyed the show, if you could just give it a like, and that helps, you know, me get a little bit more exposure on YouTube. And, yeah, King of Waco, I agree with you. Blood and Guts tonight was some good shit. It was definitely good shit. AEW did a great job tonight. Now we'll see what transpires next week. And remember, one fall, 25 days from now is their pay-per-view, which means there's 3 more Dynamites. So next week will be the fallout from Blood and Guts, a couple of stipulation matches to lead into more matches for Double or Nothing. And I can't wait. Double or Nothing will have a full capacity crowd. And I'm telling you, I know I've been saying this, a broken record for over a year, but I'm telling you, July, August will be the beginning of the new norm that will be with us for a few years. We all predicted by the summer you would have live crowds returning in droves, and AEW is going to have full capacity. Think about this. I'll leave you with this. Valentine's Day, you didn't hear any crazy spikes of infection rate. Spring break, you did hear a lot of young people catching the virus, but you didn't hear a lot of young people giving it to grandma and killing grandma. Because trust me, as you all know in the news world, if it bleeds, it leads. If spring break people brought the virus home and killed family members, older family members, it would be front page stories on all these networks. If, Sam, I forgot about you, I didn't forget about you. What did I forget about you? You can't say you forget about you. Where did I forget about you? I don't know where you're talking about. Post it so I know. I don't like to forget about anybody, so please let me know what I did or didn't do. But getting back to what I was saying, you had Valentine's Day, no crazy spikes, no spreaders. You had spring break. You had Easter, no super spreaders. You had WrestleMania. Sam says the 50. Oh, no, Sam. I think I got your DM. If I didn't, you talking about last week? I know you're talking about, I owe you 50. I'll take care of it tonight. Before I crash, you sent me the DM. Take care of it tonight. Alexis, I mailed yours out today. So Sam, yeah, okay, he is legit. He won 50, a nice 50 from me, so I'll take care of it tonight. Absolutely. But you had Easter. Did you hear anything about crazy ass spikes? We have WrestleMania. You had a few numbnuts go on social media saying, oh, I got COVID from WrestleMania. There was one guy, I don't think anybody really stopped to think about this. And you know who I'm talking about. Because a lot of websites and blue check marks actually asked him to contact them. How many of you remember after night one, there was some numbnut that went on Twitter and said the next day, yo, I got COVID yesterday at WrestleMania, but I'm still going to night two and I'm going to have fun and everything like that. And then he also revealed that he went to 3 other wrestling events earlier in the day, so he could have caught COVID from any of those events. Do any of you out there in the chat, please, don't lie. Any of you out there remember this person I'm talking about? I wish I looked up his name. In fact, I think I'm going to look at it and we'll bring his name up tomorrow. He brought up, you all remember that, the afternoon of night 2, he said he caught COVID the day before, and he said that he attended Mania and he was still going to go to night 2. And he got all this crazy-ass attention. And what was so sad about it is you don't catch COVID in less than 24 hours and show all these crazy symptoms. It's got to set up shop in your body. When it enters your body, it's got to develop, it's got to nest, and then it takes 3, 4, 5, 7 days for it to really come out. And nobody called them out on that. How did you get the symptoms and get diagnosed and tested all within technically 16 hours? Nobody bothered to think about that common sense. No, everybody just decided to get attention. Fan catches COVID during WrestleMania. It ended up to be a lie. Did you hear about any super spreaders from WrestleMania? No. You haven't heard anything from UFC? You know, it's been, 5 days already? You haven't heard anything? So we're really starting to get towards the end of the pandemic. Not the end of the virus. The virus will be here for a few years. But as far as the pandemic, where everything needs to have mandates and this and that, we're this close of it coming to an end. So, we'll see what happens. But when you have all these events and all these holidays and all these reasons for people to gather, and it's not resulting in any spikes, of course, you're always going to have a little bit of up and down. But as far as big super spreaders, you haven't seen that at all. And it's sad because you notice some news outlets out there that want it to happen because if it bleeds, it leads. Some people almost sound disappointed. They sound disappointed when there's good news coming out with this virus. So, no, I think this virus will be here for several years because the other countries, they will still have problems and you will have people traveling and they will end up bringing it back into the country, and you will see cases still pop up because there's going to be a shitload of people that will not get the virus. They don't believe in flu shots. You're not going to be able to force the whole country to get shots. You could guilt some people into getting it, which is what's going to happen sooner or later, but it's going to linger for several years. I truthfully believe 3 to 5 years minimum. 3 to 5 years minimum. We could do the greatest job we could do getting this under control and ending the pandemic here, but you're not going to keep travel bans on the UK and India and other countries forever. And sooner or later, those travel bans in some areas will be lifted, but that virus will still be in those countries. And all you need is one person to fly into the United States with the virus, and you give it to one person, and they give it to someone else, and they give it to someone else. So this virus is going to be around for a whole bunch of years. So Sam says nothing made in China will ever last that long. I have nothing against China, man. Seriously, I see some of this crazy violence going on against Asians, and it's just wrong. It was wrong to take it out on Pakistanis and, some nationalities after 9/11. You didn't blame every, person from that area of the world because of 9/11. You don't blame every Asian because of a virus that originated in China. It's just people there's violent people. There's violent people. That's plain and simple. They just need a reason to set them off. There are just people out there that just hate the world, and just give them a reason to take it out on you. So, anyway, I'm going to get out of here. So, once again, everyone, if you enjoyed the show, hit that like button before you jet out of here. And I will be back Thursday night for Q&A, mailbag. And Friday, I'll be back again for the Don Tony Show. We'll recap SmackDown, AEW NXT quarter-hour ratings. We'll discuss whatever progresses with WrestleMania Backlash. And I'm sure tomorrow and Friday we'll talk about Daniel Bryan a little bit, because with his contract officially expired, we haven't heard if he signed a new one. I personally think he will, but they wrote him off TV. Remember what I said last week? It felt like what they did with Matt Hardy and Randy Orton. They wrote Matt Hardy off TV in case he didn't come to a new deal with WWE. And what happened? He left, signed with AEW. So we'll see what happens with Daniel Bryan. But one thing is for sure, Daniel Bryan is definitely needed on TV. Definitely needed on TV. So everyone, have a great night. Much love as always. And if you're around tomorrow night, join me, because any topic is on the table. You want to talk about Eva Marie more, you want to talk about sports, anything. Thursdays aren't all wrestling. I don't know if I'm going to be playing any Indi footage tomorrow for yours truly. I don't want to burn through it so fast. So I think tomorrow we'll just, have some lighthearted fun, have some discussion, and we'll have another contest for sure. Maybe we'll give away the Bischoff tights. Maybe we won't. Someone offered to buy them. So I was thinking about, selling them and then using that funds and getting a different prize instead. So we'll see. But everyone have a great night. Thank you for tuning in. In the comment section, please post your feedback about NXT, AEW. What do you think about, the storylines that could progress with Sammy Guevara from this? What do you think about, the fact of how AEW is handling the number one contender situation? You're pretty much putting aside Cage and Page and putting Pac and Cassidy instead. And there's a lot of other topics, so speak up. Maybe we'll play some Lenny stuff tomorrow. That's possible. But I'm going to get out of here, everyone. Have a great night. Much love. And I will talk to you all soon. Be safe and be careful. Take care, everybody. Night, everybody.